Welcome to the next episode of the CAPB podcast. For today's episode, I'm delighted to have Royal Navy veteran Emily, who is the founder of Emily Rose Fine Art and Framing. Welcome, Emily.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Welcome, Emily.
The senior service, we've had a few Navy guests on. It's great to be, the Navy to be represented. And can't wait to hear your story, because when did you leave the Navy?
Well, thank you. So literally last May, so it'd be about 9 days, it would have been a year. So still fresh out the box.
And is the business a year old as well?
So I kind of launched that in July is when I had my big kind of open day. So so coming up to that as well.
Love that. Can't wait to hear about the business. Really can't. But before we get into that, let's talk about your military career. If that was a highlight reel, selection of shorts for a movie, what does it look like? What are the highlights?
Well, I would say getting my last 3 years, I got to stay local. I got to work with the guys up in the special forces, and I got to be an operations officer and see behind the scenes there and kind of work with the operations, which was really, really interesting. But I would say it's like kind of highlights are always going to be the people you meet and the places you got to go. I was quite lucky that my ships were quite really, really varied. So location was as well. So I did like 8 months down the Falklands. My last ship, Albion, was a lot of Baltic, Norway, Arctic Circle. Then I spent my first 6 years out in the Middle East. And just, you get to, and obviously people you meet in the military are always going to kind of end up sticking with you. And, some of the great runs ashore and things like that. Lerwick, Shetland Islands, highlight, that was amazing. Yeah.
I think Paul and I were both in the army. Now, I was medical corps and medical services. So a lot of our stuff are tri-service. We work a lot with the Navy, we work a lot with the RAF. And so the training part and the coming together, and that part is good. Everyone gets on. But the experience of living on a ship, I don't think that could be replicated. And I think that must be fascinating.
It is interesting. And the one thing I found a lot was like, people would ask you about the Navy, but they were like, but what do you do every day? Like, how does it work? They wanted to know what it was like going to the shower. What was it like getting out of bed? What was it like going to get food? Like just absolute basics, which you don't even think twice about. People were fascinated by, and you just realize. And it was quite funny when on my last ship, we always had Royal Marines, and watching the new Royal Marine officers come on board and just what you absolutely take for granted on ship, they were literally like, just head towards the bow end, you'll be fine. And you're obviously in like a metal container, and they're just like, is it that way? And I'm like, no, that's a sea over there. You need to go that way. And they're just like, oh, okay. So it's quite funny watching them trying to like immerse themselves into that world. It's funny.
It must be hugely different as well, because as you sort of said there, you've been on like loads of different types of ships.
Yeah.
I imagine some of them are significantly smaller than maybe, things like the aircraft carriers and stuff. And
so that is really different. So my first training ship was Mine Hunter, and that's where you have a crew of about like 30 or so. And then I also did OPV, so the Fishery Protection Squadron, and that's where you have like a crew of about 45 but they're always on rotation. So that's where you get to be really like close to people, and that's where you get to kind of work really closely with all ranks and roles and things like that. Whereas when you're on a larger ship, so when I was on Albion, I would make a conscious effort as the deputy navigator to go down to the engine spaces to talk to the engineers and the stokers down there so that they knew what was going on. Because the amount of times you took for granted, because you're the one that drives the ship, you're the one that plans the route, you know everywhere it's going. So when you go down, they're like, I don't know, are we doing another photo exercise? What are we doing? Like, where are we going? I was like, no, we're off to go do this. I'm like, oh, news to us. So, and that just shows a disparity in like the sizes and things like that. So it was always fascinating, yeah.
Is there good banter? I imagine it's a bit like, again, excuse my absolute ignorance, like, like the film The Titanic, where there's like different people working in different areas and there's a clear divide and a clear there must be some serious banter on ships.
Well, there definitely is. That is something, is like, the sense of humor, and it's like, for example, I remember we did OST, which is like Ofsted for the Navy essentially, and you get battered and for about a month, everything's on fire, everyone's sinking, everyone's dying, and you're at war constantly to test you through everything. And there was some amazing banter and quotes that came out of it, and one of my officers of the watch put it on a tea towel, and I've got that detail. And every time I see it, I snigger. Everyone else is like, it may as well be Mandarin. They're like, what? How is that funny? And you're like, how is it not funny? Like, so I do miss
You
that part of
weren't there, man. You weren't there.
it. Exactly. But yeah, there you go.
Brilliant. But you are no longer in the Navy. You are officially a veteran,
Yeah.
and you are an entrepreneur and a businesswoman. So, on
Mm.
that, what is Emily Rose Fine Art and Framing?
So Emily Rose Fine Art and Framing is it's split down into two sections. Really, there should be two separate businesses, but trying to start one is bad enough. So I'm starting them together at the moment to hopefully branch out. So you've got the picture framing, which is the conservation grade creative framing. So I don't know if you guys have ever got a picture framed or anything like that. But generally, when you go to a picture framing shop, it is a most likely a guy, probably over 50, with a beard, with about 40 or 50 frames behind him, and that's kind of it. And every time I was going somewhere, I was like, yeah, but what else have you got? What else have you got? Um, and so I decided, well, may as well just do it yourself. So now I do really creative, really large, interesting framing, but also at the conservation grade. So there are 4 different levels of framing. 2 work towards protecting your items, so completely pH neutral, no acid, UV protection in the glass, all of that sort of stuff. And then you've got the other 2 which just don't have that. And it's no more expensive. It's like maybe takes an extra 20 minutes per frame. So I've decided that's all I deal with, which means, the pieces I've got, like a couple of weeks ago, I framed a letter from Winston Churchill. I've been framing some like 18th century Chinese shipping documents. I'm really getting bits like that. So it feels like a repair shop episode most of the time when people come in, which is amazing. And then the other side, you've got the fine arts. So I do military commemorative artwork. So I do, at the moment, mostly Royal Navy because that's my contacts and the people I know, but I do different ships' crests on nautical charts. And whether that's a single unit to have as a leaving gizzard or to present to, like, I've had it presented to the governor of the Falkland Islands before and things like that. Or you can get more than one on a chart to represent your career. So you can have every ship you served on as one just beautiful piece. Because I find whenever you leave somewhere, one, you're lucky if you get anything, and two, you're lucky if you get something that, the missus will let you have up in the house. So, or doesn't just end up and like, in a under the stairs. So I've created this really beautiful kind of sophisticated pieces of artwork that can be for like passing out praise, leaves and gizzards, entire career, things like that. And they're the two sides of Emily Rose Fine Art and Framing.
I think I've seen your artwork on the
Mm,
crests on the nautical map, and I think it's a unique thing, isn't it, in the Navy
mm,
where you could encapsulate a career in one
yeah.
picture? Because in the army, you really can't. Like in the
Mm,
loft, I must have easy 20 pictures where people have presented a framed, nice piece of artwork, military print type thing. They can't go up in the house.
yeah.
And
There's so
they were
many.
okay when I was in the army, and they're up in the office everywhere, and same as the
Yeah.
chocolate soldiers and stuff. And now they're all in the loft. But
Yeah.
those maps, I think they're like a real classy piece of art.
Thank you.
Were you from an arty background then, Emily?
Yeah. So I was always a little weird kid in the corner just drawing. So I've always been obsessed with art my whole life. And I feel like there's very two different sides to me. There's a creative side and then there's the military side. And so I remember I would be on ship and like I was on Richmond and I had to ask permission to utilize the wardroom because I had a canvas that was about 2 meters by 2 meters. So on the Sunday, I just took over the whole wardroom to just paint this massive picture. Or when I was in the Falklands, I got my mum to fly my sewing machine down so I could sit there and just like be stereotypical female and just like make cushions and curtains when I was like on a Sunday when you're bored. It's the Falklands, not much else to do. And I've been making like handkerchiefs for like the other like guys on board because when I was there for about 4 months, I was like the only girl on board. It was a bit trying, but I got to do my sewing and stuff like that. So it's always been a part of what I do. And then I got told off for having all my painting in the crypto shack when I was crypto custodian. So
Was it always the plan to go into art as work?
it was always kind of a brainchild of something I wanted to do because when I was ops navs on one of my ships, we had to go do a burial at sea, and the captain just asked, "Oh, can you just plot a chart, a position on the chart to give to the family?" Um, so we can show where we've laid this chap to rest. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I was just like, I could do more than that. So on this chart, I did a beautiful, because he was a PO who had sadly had a heart attack while he was doing some exercise. And so I did a little PO signia on the position, wrote the position, then I did a brief kind of dedication from his family, and then I did like beautiful rope work and anchor, and then like a big thing. And then when I finished it, I then drove to his widow and gave it to her and said, like, this is from the ship, this is, and it just obviously it just made me realize how meaningful you can create something so beautiful and meaningful with something like that. And it made me realize that, you know, you can really do some good and have something worthwhile, whilst incorporating it with like my navigational side of things. So yeah.
I think it's incredible, mate, and it's incredible. I just want to touch on something again. Excuse my absolute naivety.
That's all right.
A burial at sea.
Yeah, so it's not like you're picturing from Master and Commander when they're in like just wrapped up, sewn through the nose, and then just lobbed over the side. It's a lovely church service, and then it's generally it's ashes that are in a like either kind of as they are in a like beautiful little box that then are placed over the side with some weights to, yeah.
Right. That
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Like a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So the business then, the business is I guess you're in your first 12 months.
Yes.
Where did the idea come from that you could do this as a business?
I don't really know, to be honest. So I think I went to go do a course on framing when I was getting a bit sick of lack of options, and it was when I was there. It's this, it's called Artwork Creations. He's in Bath, and he's this chap called Paul, and he's absolutely fabulous. He does courses, and he used to have his own like place in London, like gallery in London. He used to work with like Sotheby's, Christie's, museums, and stuff like that, because I wanted to learn from the best. And I was chatting to him, and I was learning the basics. And by the end of the 2 days, he was just like, right, we ended up doing stuff that people come and do on their like fifth or sixth visit, doing really advanced stuff. And he was just like, you're taking to this really quickly. You're really, and I'd always dabbled on doing the art as a business. And it was kind of in those 2 days, I was like, right, that's it. I'm doing this. And yeah, and it kind of came from there. And then the more I researched and the more I looked into like the framings, I knew the art was unique. I knew there was nothing else like that. And I just like, you know what, sod it, I'm going to do both, and I'm just going to make it. And that's where Emily Rose Fine Art and Framing came from.
How did you start, and who was your, as in like, you've got the idea now, how did you start, and who's been, if you can say this, who's been your most sort of excited or more like excitable customer, or more like famous person or something that you've done?
So sadly, I haven't done anything for any celebrities or anything yet. However, I've got Hay Festival coming up, which I'll talk a little bit about, and there's some massive names that go there. But I did a piece for the Fleet Commander. So you've got the first Sea Lord, second Sea Lord, then the Fleet Commander. So a chap called Jerry Kidd, who's now left, and I think he's governor or something big in the Channel Islands. I should probably get that right. But yeah, so I did a piece for him. But it's also just the different ships. So I've had my work kind of is on HMS Portland, it's on HMS Trent, it's on HMS Albion, it's, as I say, HMS Forth, and they used it to present to the governor of the Falkland Islands. So I've got things like that. And then and then with the framing, that's the one thing I love, is I get a lot of excited customers just in general. Like, I've got some great reviews, and they always come back, and they're always just they're so excited when they see the piece. And like I say, it's like a little mini episode of the repair shop when they see what you've been able to do with it. It's really sweet.
I saw the thing on social media with the Churchill letter, and I thought that, you know, for someone to entrust you with framing something that's like so valuable to them, and so like historic in the UK, I think that's pretty cool, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And like the amount of things that they entrust to you that are from people who passed away. So literally this last weekend he's an army lad actually who came to see me, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying, but I framed a couple of football shirts because he's literally just lost his mate who was 20, and his funeral's this week, I believe. And so they needed it turned around quickly to present a football shirt to his mum and then to his partner. And so to have someone trust you with things like that is something I will never ever take for granted, definitely.
I love that, mate. I love that. And I think with your with the amount of veteran, the size of the veteran community, you know, now you present and create these unique things, these like the nautical maps. I imagine there's a lot of Navy veterans who would love the opportunity to have their Navy career put onto something like that.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one thing that being in the first year of business is just learning that customer journey and learning the logistics of how to, one, get it out there, two, then be able to produce it in a cost effective way, and then three, be able to get the product to them. And this is everything I'm learning. So this is something that I know can be big, but at the moment I know my customer journey is a little bit clunky. I know like delivery, like the first one I had to deliver, I had to drive over 3 hours to deliver it to them because I'm like, it's huge, it's made of glass. It's either £500 to deliver it, or I don't trust them. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to have to drive it myself, which is obviously the not most time efficient way of doing things. But I'm like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, but it's unique, isn't it? Because that's a challenge, isn't it? Because I didn't really think of it like that. Because loads of people expect the convenience of mail order, but when it's a frame and it's glass, and you know, it's like, and like you said, your location is in Hereford, so there would be a requirement for them to either come to you to collect, or you know, you're limiting your reach. You know.
Exactly, and so thankfully, the one that I'm working on at the moment, which is a huge original piece, the officer in question was literally like, "Oh, so I'll come collect it. Is that all right?" And I was like, "Yep, that's fine. Please do." Yeah, exactly. So I need to do more in like the logistics with that, because I know there are couriers, and I know there are deliveries that are like specialised in that, but you know that's probably going to cost an arm and a leg. So we'll see.
So we've mentioned a couple of times you're nearly up to a year in business, and I imagine it's been a bit of a roller coaster. What's the biggest lesson you've learned so far?
I would say is just think big. There's absolutely nothing wrong with thinking big. You know, like still be realistic, but don't temper yourself or limit yourself by just thinking, well, that's too much for me, that's too much, etc. Because, like I alluded to before, so in Herefordshire, you may have heard of it, and some of your listeners might have done as well. There's a thing called the Hay Festival, and it is the largest literary festival in the world. And it started in Hay-on-Wye, which is just outside Hereford, but it's now all over the world. They host events in Spain, like South America. Like they have ones all over the world throughout the year, and they are huge. So, prime example, this year you've got Emma Thompson coming, Stephen Fry comes every year, Michael McIntyre, Greg Davis, Paul Merton, Malala, the Nobel Peace Prize winner. You get names like this a few years ago. Hillary Clinton was there, and they're all doing talks and things like this. And I've got a stand there. They have a very limited number of people that they have having little stalls and shops and things like this. And I just thought, you know, that's one thing I really want to do. So I went and just applied and all that sort of stuff. And they were like, "Oh my God, we haven't had anything like you. Would love you to come." Now, don't get me wrong, it's cost me an arm and a leg, and I'm literally scraping every single penny I can to be able to pay for it. But, you know, that's at an event where you never know, Emma Thompson might wander around and just be like, "Oh, I love your framing." And I'll be like, "Yeah," you know, and things like that. And then another thing was like, I've just been shortlisted as a finalist for the Herefordshire and Worcestershire Chamber of Commerce Awards for Most Promising New Business. You know, my mum's response was, "Oh, did you have to nominate yourself?" I was like, "Yeah, I did." Like, and that's fine. You know, put yourself forward. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Go ask questions. Go like, you know, just go speak to people or ask questions that you would have thought, "Oh, like, I won't bother them," or maybe I shouldn't, or you know, maybe it's a bit too much for me. It's like, no, sod it, go for it.
I think what you said there about like don't limit yourself. I think you're a year in business and you've pitched and been accepted to go, as you say, the biggest literary festival in the world. And I think there's a real, you know, that could make such a difference in your business, change the trajectory of everything by taking that risk versus going, nah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, fingers crossed, because it's like literally it's one of those sink or swim moments. I've literally put everything I have into this hay festival now, and I've got no more customers lined up. I'm just waiting to finish, like send them off. So if they come out and I get nothing out of it, I'm going to be spending like June, be like, right, I need 5 more customers now. I need to pay the mortgage. So you never know.
You should make like bespoke. You should make something bespoke, like small. It's not going to take you loads of time, specifically for Emma Thompson. That's what you should do.
Yeah.
You heard it
Oh,
here
yeah.
first, and then she would get it up in her house. She can stick it on her socials to a zillion Oscar-winning mates, and that'll be it then, mate.
This is very true. Like Stephen Fry is the president of Hay Festival. He's there every single year. And if I create, that's a good point. If I create something and like mercilessly tag Hay Festival in it, tag Stephen Fry, it might come in front of him, and then he might be like, oh, at some point I'm gonna have to go down and see her. And then, because that is my aim, is to have like a selfie with, like, I love Stephen Fry. Like, have a selfie with Stephen Fry holding something I created, just like, whoop. You never know.
I love it. I love it. So other than the Hay Festival, which is that, do you see that as being an avenue you like look forward to, you enjoy, or is it like, is it a learning curve, learning how to just interact socially so much? Because I imagine it's a festival like that is so much of just talking to perspective. Do you know what I mean?
It is, yeah. So thankfully, as part of my kind of tactics last year, which I think it doesn't matter what your business is, you should do it, is I went to as many events as I could. I had stalls like little village halls. I think I had a £10 stall at a little village hall in the middle of nowhere in Herefordshire, and that's where I got the customer who then bought the Winston Churchill letter and stuff like that. Like, so I went and did everything. So I think my first month of June, building up to my open day, I think I had 6 different events over the 4 weeks of like different stalls, and it is knackering. Like, it is like, even just talking to people, like I have that conversation about the 4 different types of framing like 12 times every hour, because like it's how you try and engage people and get them to get like vaguely fascinated by framing, you know, which isn't the easiest thing in the world. And so thankfully, because I did so much last year, like my stand developed. So you talk about like the podcast and how like it started at the roots and how you develop. It's the exact same with every business. Like when I look at my first stand, I'm just like, I look like I literally just dumped it out the boot and just like stuck a flag on it and be like, come buy from me. And that was it. And then I compare it to my last one. So yeah, so thankfully I feel like I've done the build up. So I feel a lot more ready, but I also know I'm going to learn so much from this as it is. You know, from where it's like just even just the smallest marketing things of like, you know, having little bags of sweets so you can be like, oh, you get free sweets if you give me an Instagram follow, and even if they don't, they stand there eating their sweets, so they're just there looking at your store longer, and it's just little things like that, and you know, yeah. So
I think with your business, I think it's such a cool thing because it's one of those things where it brings people in, isn't it? You know, you've got some of your artwork on display and it's quite unique and quite creative. It's like that kind of brings people in. Is the intention like to get unique, like what they called commissions, where people are saying, hey, I love your style. Can you do this for me? I was in the Royal Engineers and I deployed and I would love this. Or is it more like, hey, cool, I do framing for good stuff, but I'm pretty good at the art. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And to be honest, I think that is a balance that I really need to figure out what it is. Like, and it's the same with any business. You need to know what your mission aim is. You need to know then what your top 3 objectives are. And then you need to make sure that everything you're doing is aligning to those and you're not getting too distracted, which is very easy to do. And so I had to sit down and think, right, which product of my military artwork is the one I want to go for? And is that higher than my main framing product and stuff like that? And so for me, and it'll be the same with any other business, you kind of have to figure out, right, what is your key product or service? What is the one that is going to be the easiest to roll out with the most customer satisfaction, with the most, you know, job satisfaction, with the most kind of profits so that you can sustain and keep the business? Because, you know, a business is about making money so that you can, you know, pay the mortgage and all that sort of stuff. And so for me, the biggest one is if I can get the multiple crests on a chart, there comes a way that I can create them quite simply and be able to produce them quite quickly for the customer. So the more of those I get, it becomes much more cost effective. So that's kind of like the main way. Whereas when I get individual original kind of commissions, which I'm working on 3 at the moment, they're really satisfying, but they take up so much time, so that actually by the time I've got the money in, I've probably only paid myself like £10 an hour or something to actually draw it and create it, because, you know, at the early days you struggle to know what to charge. And then with the framing is good because it's local, so it's like kind of more just the kind of backbone footfall to keep the business afloat kind of thing. So it's a really hard balance to figure out what it is. So Hay Festival is going to be mostly about the framing, about local, But because I also get antique prints and little pictures and things like that that I frame to show just how interesting framing can be, I promise. And, so it's we try and get people to buy that and things like that. So it completely changes depending on what event you're doing. So I've got like a military open day, so obviously that's going to be nothing but military artwork. So yeah, it's a mixture.
Is the plan to do any framing on the day?
I wanted to, but I wasn't going to have enough room and the equipment that I need. Like at the moment, it has to sit in my kitchen, literally just over there because it's so big. It fits nowhere else in my townhouse. But I'm going to have a TV with some videos of showing me at work, and my backdrop is going to be all the framing options, like all the chevrons. So when you go to a framing shop, you see all those fancy things. So that's all going to be the background. And I'm going to have bits for people to like play with and things like that, as well as because I love having accessories and stuff with me. So I've got like an old diver's helmet. I've got like a 18th century ship's helm, which is like as big as I am. So I always take them with me because people come over and like just like, oh my god, and they like keep trying to buy it, and I'm just like no. But so I find things like that draw people in as well.
I think it's unique, isn't it? We had Genevieve Turley on, and I don't know if you ever heard of Genevieve. Genevieve she was an RAF veteran, but she's a makeup artist, right?
Oh wow!
And she was a makeup artist, raising her kids, and trying to do bridal makeup. That's what she was doing, but she's pretty talented. And then what happened was she had a couple of skits that she did on social media go viral to a point now where she's got like, I think over 1 million followers. She's done
amazing
stuff with, like Trini Susanna. She's been on telly with doing makeup for all these programs and stuff. And what her balance was when she was like you were saying about you've got the fine art and you've got the framing, hers was like, do I create content to push my makeup business, or do I use the content as a business? Because now she's, as I say, she monetizes her social media, and it's trying to get that balance right where does she focus the effort into more makeup stuff or more comedy content stuff? And it's like you said, it's like some of the stuff is going to turn money quicker, cash flow is king, other stuff is maybe more longevity and credibility,
Yeah, definitely. And then because that's another thing when you go like a step down is then what do you then prioritize? So for example, my social media, like I was hot on it for about 3 months, and then for the last 3 months I've done nothing, and now building it up again. And it's about like, right, because anyone who does business and tries to do any kind of content creation, you know how much time it takes. But then that's looking at your marketing avenues, and kind of the same with picking which product you're aiming for is picking which marketing avenue works best for you. And for me, I think I need to also not forget that some of my largest commissions have just come because they've seen my reel, and they've literally then emailed me and say, I want one. And then without hesitating, transferred over a 50% deposit, which is, not a short amount of money, So it's prioritizing that and recognizing what works for your business. So
I think it's brilliant. I can see it. I can see it going. Some of the pieces, and I can see it in my head as like prints that you would have in like a, available for people to buy at some of these, you know what I mean? So that you would create 30 limited edition prints, and then that you sell them to an organization, and they can do what they want with them. And do you know what I mean? So you can
exactly. And that's the thing. Like, so I did Collingwood Open Day last year, and I've got it this year. And in preparation, I did a piece of artwork for Collingwood, so people can have that. And I got about 40 mugs, about 30 prints, I spent about £1,000 on stock getting it all ready, and I sold 1 mug. And that's it. I've still got all that in my stock. And then when I was closing up, they thankfully were like, "Oh, we want to open a shop. Can we stock your stuff?" And I was like, "Yes, please do. Please stock my stuff."
I've got 40 mugs here. That's a start of 10.
Exactly. I haven't heard anything since, but this is where it's like it's literally, so you've got to test it all. And so that is then kind of the next, after kind of Hay Festival, my next then aim is to get an online shop up and going, because at the moment the 700 followers I have on Instagram, and then the vague people it then might push my stuff out to, is the people I'm getting buying my stuff. So again, it's a bit like what I was saying earlier about how to get it out there, because I think once it is out there, there will be plenty of reason to have an online shop and things like that. So that's what I kind of is the next thing after this.
Have you seen, or do you follow a guy called Jack Wiles? He's got a company called RB Club. Okay. It did start as a company called Rugby Buckets. And what he
Yeah.
did was make bucket hats out of rugby shirts. Okay.
Okay.
This guy was an RAF regiment veteran, worked at SFSG down in St. Athan. And while he was on ops, he saw a YouTube video of a girl making a bucket hat out of denim jeans, right? And he was like, I've got a brilliant idea. You fast forward now, and he's been in business a couple of years, and he has a full-on business. He's rebranded to be called RB Club. But what I'm trying to get to is one of the things that made his stuff go viral was he videoed himself making the hats. And like like one of his videos had 9 million views on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it was making a bucket hat. And I can see that working for you, framing like some of these unique pieces where people would be fascinated. They'll be fascinated on the cutting of the glass, on the thing that you're making, like the Winston Churchill letter. I could see that being pure viral content on TikTok, on Instagram. I think people would be really interested in seeing the process. And the fact that, again, you're a woman working in this space, which is like exactly you said earlier on. Traditionally, middle-aged blokes who aren't going to do the content.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it could be a real thing, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I have tried, so I've done a few reels again where it's like I show the whole process. So there's a few on my Instagram which are like my nerdy little kind of welcome of me smiling and waving, like, hello, come frame this with me, and things like that. So I've got a few out there like that. And again, it's something I want to get kind of better at, because it is the process that sells. And it's one thing I realized when I do these kind of more unique little frame pieces, to cover the time, the materials and stuff like that, they're quite expensive. And it's kind of like you were saying, that there's this lady called, or this young girl, she's called Ace of Shades, and she does lamp shades, but really each one's handmade, each one's completely different. And she just shows her making it, and then she puts them on her website. And her website is literally just a shop with about 18 lamps, like shades, just depending on what she's just made. And they're all about 800-900 quid each. And they're all just sold because hundreds of thousand people watch her making it. And then it's just a fight to who can buy that one the quickest, you know, and that's it. And so I feel that's the kind of trend I want to get into with that picture framing. But again, it's just like setting the time aside, setting the space aside, and kind of being a lot more disciplined. But yeah, it's definitely something I want to look and do more of.
It's super hard. I totally get that. It's super hard. We like it. As I say, when we started the podcast, for example, it was just Paul and I, and we spoke about this a couple of times before. It was you can create a podcast for free. That's the reality. So it's zero cost. And Paul lives in North Wales. I live in Gloucestershire. And it was like, right, let's do this podcast. And we use Spotify. There's an app which is free to create it. It must have took us an hour and a half, and we couldn't record a 4-minute segment of us just trying to introduce what the podcast would be. Literally, to a point where we're going to go, let's forget this. We're never going to be able to do it. And then we ended up doing the first episode with a friend of ours who's also a veteran, a guy called Wayne Smallman. And he was basically like, you guys are rubbish at this. But I'm really excited about like things like the editing and like creating some of the Canva artwork. And we were like, you're employed. By the way, it's free. By the way, we will pay you nothing. And now that's why, as I say, it's like that crazy veteran community can come together and support stuff. And
definitely.
There are a few really cool veteran brands out there who focus entirely on the media and the content. Do you know what I mean? And I think there's a real market there, a real niche for like, you know, the veteran owned space and that creative space which you're in.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree. Yeah.
So it's your business is very young. But let's say my daughters are both very arty, very into art. And I can actually see my eldest as like front of house at an art gallery, that kind of thing. That's where I can kind of, she's very, what's the word, like whimsical and very chilled and relaxed and things like that. But if she wanted to go into business and you wanted to give her a bit of advice, what would that advice be?
I would say is do your research, and whether that is for your product, for your client, but it's also for what you need to know. So that's thankfully my market research was really easy because I just spent 12 years living on ship. Like half of them I was bloody gifto, so I had to figure out like how to, like, you know, so I lived the role, so that was fantastic. But when it came to kind of everything else that came with like starting a business, I just realized how much I didn't know. And it's also, you don't know what you don't know. So, and some mistakes, although innocent enough, can cost your business. So like do the research, whether that's like, you know, I have learned so much about accountancy and VAT. I have learned so much about marketing. I have learned so much about stocking and stuff like this. Like I've even got I've got a little 1 day a week job at a little independent shop in Hereford, because I was like, right, well, I want to learn more about, you know, how you work with suppliers, how you get your like your stock in, like where do you go, who do you talk to, and things like that. And like, you know, running a premises in Herefordshire, okay, what are the different insurances, how does it work with the council, like, you know, things like this. And so yeah, research is really, really key, I would say, as well as like networking. Like they say, network is your net worth, you know, so don't be afraid to go out there. And so I go to networking events all the time. It's got me a little bit of work, but but it's about the amount they talk about me. So I'll go somewhere and they're all, like, every time without fail, someone's like, "Oh, I was talking to someone about you the other day," and telling them about your framing. And the amount of talks I've given, like half the talks I've done are at networking events. And then the last one thing I'd also say is there is so much support and help out there. Use it, and just be careful of the ones you do use. So there's loads of local companies. So there's one in Hereford, they're called Elevate, and they're fantastic. And they've done loads of grant schemes through the local council. So I've had like one-on-one business consultations, which normally cost over like £150 an hour, but I've got that for free by the council. You know, if I go do an event and I've been to one of their courses, like they will come on a Saturday to come to the event, to come see my stall, to see how I am. And how it's going. But then on the other hand, there are some other companies. So it was before I'd left the military, but essentially this company promised to coach me through business and holding. And I was like, I know nothing about business. I know my market, I know my products, I know nothing else. And it was this really pumped up, precious sale environment. And essentially I paid £30,000 for this business coaching program for over a year, where they promised my turnover would be 250k in the first year. And it was just horrendous. You get no hand holding, I got no support. Everything they were teaching you was really generic. Their first lesson, they give you these free days, the first lesson is how to get in debt and all this sort of stuff. I took out a personal loan 2 months before leaving the military, and they were helping me fill it in, be like, oh, just make sure you don't say you're leaving the military and all this sort of stuff. And so I've now gone through the whole complaint system. Like, kind of my next thing is now to take them to court. I've been in chatting with the Sunday Times to help them write a feature and expose them for who they are. And essentially, I don't know whether I will take them to court in the end, because if they do go to court and I lose, they'll take my house, they take everything. And at the moment, I Airbnb every bedroom in my house to pay my bills, because I now have a 30 grand loan that I'm now trying to pay off with a disgusting amount of interest. And that's from a coaching company. So be very careful who you get help from, but there is incredible help. There's like local growth hubs, everything, which you can use. So that has been another massive, massive challenge to my first year of business that I did not need. But thankfully, military resilient, and be like, oh, no one's died, we can sort it.
Emily, that is awful, by the way. And you are not the first person. We've had, I won't mention names either, but we've had another business on the pod who, similar thing, like they were approached by an organization who said, we work for these people and this is what we'll do to your sales and what we'll do. And it's only going to cost X amount of thousand a month for 6 months.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, it's like when you're trying to grow a business, it's like risk versus reward. You think, great, that's a good investment. Because it's going to lead to this. And the fact that your business is still going, by the way, and the fact that you're still got the outlook you are, and you're doing these great things like Hay Festival, and you're developing your business. When you started like in the trenches by getting shot in the foot, I think it's incredible, mate. And you talk about military resilience and stuff is really incredible. And what a dick thing to do, by the way.
It is, honestly, like, I don't know how Oh, it is. Yeah, I don't know how they do it. It's like, prime example, I was there and I was chatting to a lady who wanted to close down her business after a few months of help with from these people, because essentially when she went to their sales thing, she said, oh, I've just found out I've got a brain tumor, so I've got to have some surgery. And their response was like, oh, that's great, when you're in hospital, that's perfect time to work on your business, just think of all that time you're going to have, like, apart from ignoring the fact that she needs to recover. Like, these are the sort of people that they are. But it's also for anyone who's ever had anything like this, don't feel stupid or ashamed or anything like that, because I am also like, I am not stupid. I used to drive ships. I was a navigating officer. I worked with the special forces. I looked at all the details. I looked at everything they were telling me. I looked at all the logical steps and things like that, and it made sense. And I would happily invest that money again into something that would deliver and have the products and the strategies and the tactics and the information that they said they had. And it's just the fact they don't have it. So if you have ever been scammed out of money, or feel like you've been scammed out of money trying to get extra support for a business or things like that, which just trying to fill the gaps of what you don't know, don't feel stupid or ashamed if it's turned out it's not worked out because they've not delivered what they said they would. You're not stupid, and don't make that scare you from trying something else, is what I would say, if possible.
Mate, I genuinely, I think that's brilliant advice. I think it's brilliant advice because lots of people, when you start a business, or you're going into something the unknown, you do exactly like you said there, want to fill the gaps. One of the things we found, and I would, for anyone who's listening to the podcast, anyone watching the podcast, is if you're a veteran or you're in the military community and you're starting a business, reach out to the good military veteran businesses, because we have had people on here who have got friendships now, who have supported each other. I'll give you an example. Jacob Lockwood, who's started Lockwood Smocks, which is a British made, real focus on British made high-end premium smocks, and Jack Wiles from Rugby Buckets. Nothing would have ever made their paths cross other than the fact that they're both veteran-owned businesses. Another guy's a guy called Teague Young, who started Combat Clipper Co. Again, he is on the end of a phone. If someone, and he would happily just pick the phone up to someone, if someone says, I want to do this on social media, what are your thoughts? And they will take time, even though they've never worked with each other in the military, never served with each other, but there is that bond in the military veteran community where people are just willing to support each other.
Oh, definitely. And that's one thing I found. So when I started, I remember started posting my Instagram of my military artwork, and there is two amazing other ladies. You've got Gillian Jones Designs, and you've got Indigo Zulu Inc., who do the military artwork. And within the first week of me posting my artwork and things like that, they were sharing me on their stories. They were like, oh my God, have you checked this girl out? She's fantastic. Gillian emailed me and said, oh, do you want a phone call to talk about business and stuff like that? And she was talking me through her products, what had sold, what hasn't, gave me contacts so that I could do Collingwood Open Day. Like, the absolute openness and support. It's just been absolutely phenomenal, whereas other people would just have seen a competitor and shut it dead. And it's just something, like you say, with the veteran community and the military community, it's just, you're never going to lose that. And it's been really, kind of comforting and supporting. And
we had Alex Pazinski from Combat Fuel on quite an early episode, and he makes supplements, like the creatines and shakes, and he's a brilliant veteran on sports veteran. But he said, because it's quite a saturated market, and he said that, what was his quote? He said, you don't have to dim someone else's light just to make yours shine brighter. And it really stuck with me because, like you said, Indigo Zulu, she's brilliant, by the way. Izzy is an incredible human who's supporting the veteran community, and she sent me like a bespoke piece that she'd made, which is ace, by the way. Is for her she could go, well, she's a competitor. We do a similar thing, so no. And that level of leaning in, going, no, you did something. There's plenty of space for all of us to create business here. I think that's a brilliant thing for the veteran community.
Yeah,
brilliant.
It definitely is. And it's also something I found with like kind of local businesses as well. And it's something with a bit of advice I would also give is don't be afraid to go talk to your local competitors and kind of build a support network. Because I have in Hereford, you've got two fully found like proper picture framing shops, well established, been there for decades. And then there's a couple of other smaller ones. And so there's one like 200 yards down the road from me. And so when I did my open day, I went around with flyers and said, oh, if you're going to be around, like if you're about, please come say hi. And so the guy that does like 200 like yards down the road, like I've gone over to him because I didn't know how to do something, or I've run out of stock and stuff like this. And he's always just like been really helpful and really sweet. And he's like, when you need to do this next bit, you bring the biscuit, let's have a cup of tea, I'll talk you through it. You know, you didn't have to do that. So it's not just military. So don't be afraid to talk to your competitors as well. And like, yeah, you'll be surprised the support's out there. And the ones that are a bit like, no, I'm not going to help you, then they're just not really worth knowing. And as you say, someone else's success doesn't take away from your own. So, yeah.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Listen, Emily, thank you so much for giving your time up to come on the podcast. And we wish you all of the best of luck at the Hay Festival. And hopefully that'll be the next piece of, you know, business that'll send the business into the next level of trajectory, which is just brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully it's a selfie of me and Stephen Fry on my Instagram from it.
Yes. I don't think Stephen Fry watches the podcast, but if you do, Stephen, make sure you go and see Emily's stand. Thank you so much.
That's all right. Thank you.
Take care.